In the shadows of global power, where money, influence, and secrecy intersect, a new chapter has emerged in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Newly released documents from the Epstein files are reigniting international scrutiny, this time pointing toward Russia. According to the documents, internal emails and communications unsealed by the US Department of Justice contain more than 1,000 references to Vladimir Putin and nearly 10,000 mentions of Moscow. One email from 2011 describes plans for what is referred to as an appointment with Putin in Russia, with travel arrangements discussed through a contact identified only as Igor. Another email from 2014 suggests a potential meeting involving Putin was under consideration. That plan, however, was reportedly abandoned following the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 over Ukraine, a tragedy that killed 298 people and was later linked to Russian forces. No meeting has been confirmed. No direct evidence has been presented, but the trail of questions continues to grow. An FBI report included in the files makes further claims, alleging that Epstein maintained a close relationship with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and suggesting he was trained as a spy. These allegations remain unverified and have been strongly disputed. The files also reference Epstein's regular contact with Masha Drokova, a former leader of a pro-Kremlin youth movement and a known supporter of Vladimir Putin. Intelligence sources cited in the documents suspected that Drokova's Silicon Valley firm may have been used as a front to acquire sensitive technology. The company has denied the allegations and no conclusive proof has been made public. US security agencies had reportedly monitored Epstein for years, citing concerns over his alleged ties to Russian mafia figures and organized crime networks. What troubled intelligence officials most was Epstein's extraordinary access to political leaders, billionaires, royalty, and some of the world's most powerful individuals. British intelligence sources were also cautious, particularly due to Epstein's association with Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The files have revived a darker theory, the possibility of a so-called honey trap operation. Some media reports suggest Epstein may have been involved in a network designed to gather compromising material on influential figures, a tactic historically associated with intelligence services. However, it is critical to note that these claims rely on unnamed sources and intelligence interpretations, not on publicly proven evidence of official espionage. The documents also revisit long-rumored links between Epstein and the late media tycoon Robert Maxwell, who has been alleged in multiple investigations to have had connections with intelligence services and the Soviet bloc. Some speculate Epstein may have been introduced to intelligence circles through Maxwell. These claims too remain contested and unproven. Crucially, individuals named in the Epstein files, including politicians, business leaders, and public figures, have denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes or involvement in illegal activity. What remains is a vast archive of names, emails, and unanswered questions. The Epstein files do not deliver verdicts. They deliver something entirely different, a stark reminder of how closely the shadows can circle the highest seats of global power.
Newly released U.S. government files are reopening one of the darkest chapters in recent American history, and this time the trail leads thousands of miles east. According to documents published by the U.S. Department of Justice, convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein traveled to Russia multiple times in the early 2000s, including at least one trip with former U.S. President Bill Clinton. The revelations come from thousands of records released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, signed into law by President Donald Trump, forcing the DOJ to publish long-sealed material tied to federal investigations. Flight logs tell part of the story. Court documents linked to a lawsuit filed by Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre show that Epstein, his longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell, and an assistant flew to Russia on at least 3 occasions between 1992 and 2003, aboard Epstein's private Boeing 727. One trip stands out. In May 2002, the plane stopped in Novosibirsk, then continued east to Khabarovsk in Russia's Far East. On the passenger manifest, Bill Clinton, his aide Doug Band, and several others. After Khabarovsk, the group reportedly flew on to Shenzhen, China. When Epstein was questioned about that flight years later, he refused to answer. In 2016, during legal proceedings, Epstein invoked the Fifth Amendment, declining to respond to questions about the Khabarovsk trip with Clinton. The former U.S. president has repeatedly stated he had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities and says he severed ties with Epstein long before the financier's arrest. But the documents do not stop at travel. The files also reveal financial transfers from Epstein's accounts to Russian banks between 2008 and 2012, more than $10,000 sent to women in Russia. Regulators say those transfers fit a broader, troubling pattern. In 2020, Deutsche Bank was fined $150 million for failing to properly monitor Epstein's transactions, which included payments to Russian models and more than $800,000 in suspicious cash withdrawals. Photographs released by the DOJ show Epstein posing at landmarks in Moscow and St. Petersburg, accompanied by unidentified women. All of this emerges years after Epstein's death in a New York jail in 2019, while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges, a death that continues to fuel public suspicion and political pressure. Lawmakers and advocacy groups say the newly released files are only a partial window into a much larger network, and they are demanding answers about who knew what and when. The documents raise uncomfortable questions. Why was Epstein traveling to Russia so frequently? Who else was involved? And why do so many details remain unresolved decades later? As more files surface, the Epstein case, long buried, long contested, is once again forcing the powerful into the spotlight.